What's up, YouTube? It's time for a review of the new Ryan Adams record, Prisoner, out this past Friday, February 17th. Ryan Adams has gotta be one of the most prolific fucking people in all of music. He's on what, like 15, 16 solo albums now. You've got his 90s output with Whiskey Town. You've got all of his producing and songwriting and collaborating. He's a busy guy. The first album of his that I heard was Love Is Hell, which as a teenager was so easy for me to get into because it was full of all these things that I was already pretty accustomed to. There were a lot of singer-songwriter isms, whether it be these piano ballads or this folky acoustic stuff like the song Thank You Louise, which is one of my favorites, or of course the Wonderwall cover that everybody knows. But there were also a lot of just like straight ahead rock tunes that echoed more of like the heartland rock style of Bruce Springsteen or Tom Petty. There was just a lot of things that I was already familiar with, so it just instantly connected. But what I didn't even realize at the time was that Ryan Adams came from a country music background, and where he became a truly important artist for me personally was when I went back and heard Heartbreaker, his first solo record, and heard, of course, the 3 Whiskey Town records. And it's these albums that single-handedly forced me to give country music a chance, which as a 15-year-old metalhead at the time was not exactly my cup of tea. But that stuff was pivotal in showing me that you can never, ever write off an entire genre of music. Like, to me, there's no such thing as a bad genre of music. There's only genres of music that you haven't necessarily found your right gateway into. And I know that technically like the genre label for an album like Heartbreaker is alternative country, but it opened me up to that world, and since then I found a lot to love there. So it taught me a life lesson in a way. But the music Ryan Adams has made in the last decade or so doesn't necessarily have much to do with country, and doesn't necessarily stray too far from what was on Love Is Hell. Though a record like his last one, the self-titled record, leaned a little bit more towards the crunchy rock sound than the stripped down singer-songwriter stuff, but in general there haven't been too many unexpected left turns. Of course, this new one, Prisoner, might have a lot of new ears because of Ryan's last release, which was a front-to-back covers album of Taylor Swift's 1989, which personally I was 50-50 on, because I thought in some cases he just destroyed and like rendered the original obsolete, and in some cases I still actually prefer the original songs. But either way, even though the guy has had like a 2-decade plus career, there's going to be a lot of people hearing him for the first time here. And Prisoner is a great introduction to Ryan Adams' recent solo material because I have a lot of the same praises here as I've had on his last few LPs. For one, there's some real touching lyrics on here that speak to me just as a human being, the title track being one. The second verse of this song is just beautiful, how he creates this visual of this guy behind bars, and as he sits there, the memories of his lost love are stacking up next to his bed. And even though this is all just a metaphor, I actually visualize this heartbroken guy sitting in a jail cell while these memories, like these books worth of memories, are just stacking up around him and like pouring salt into his wounds. And since he's stuck with these memories in his head, it's like another form of imprisonment. So he's a prisoner of love, but he's a prisoner of his own thoughts and his own memories. And in these lyrics, Ryan extends the metaphor further to this person actually having committed a crime, which is brilliant, because to be in prison, to be in jail, you have to have committed a crime, right? And I feel like this idea of love being a crime comes from that feeling during a really bad breakup where like your love, this accumulation of however much time you spent together, your love has had such consequences that you actually start to consider whether it was wrong of you to love that person, because now that things have gone south, it's brought more pain to the both of you than the love ever brought you happiness. And there's more of this poetically worded anguish on the song Shiver and Shake, where Ryan sings about having been up all night ruminating about this girl, maybe the same girl from Prisoner, about this girl having moved on. He says, "I close my eyes, I see you with some guy, laughing like you never even knew I was alive." And that just gave me chills. That lyric feels like it comes from such a real place too, because when a girl you've loved moves on, what hurts the most to visualize? The sex being better? Alright. The guy having more money and taking her cooler places? Okay. But picturing her actually happier and forgetting about you, that's what's devastating. And Ryan later says that these are the days where you need double what it takes, just talking about how difficult it is for him to get through the day at this time in his life. So lots of fun, jolly song topics here, because Prisoner has these running themes of loss and heartbreak and ruminating about that loss and heartbreak. And in a weird way, I enjoy how depressing it is. It's beautiful, because it's not like this crushing suicidal despondency. It's more of these natural feelings that happen to anybody who's ever loved or lost love or been heartbroken. So in that sense, it feels like something that's very real, but very temporary. Something that he's going to pull through, because we've all been there and we've all pulled through and used albums like this to help us. Another thing I love is how this album sounds. The guitar tones, in particular, the clean guitar tones, are just sublime. Songs like Anything I Say to You Now, or We Disappear, or the song Breakdown, which blends clean electric guitars with acoustic guitars. These songs are elevated tremendously by just how bright and crisp the guitar tones are. And on the song Anything I Say to You Now, which is probably one of my favorite songs on here, I found it really interesting how high in the mix the guitars are. And I oddly enjoy it because these gorgeous tones are sitting so high in the mix that you can just sit back and enjoy them as much as you can enjoy anything else that's going on in the song. I also really enjoy how on many of these songs his voice is just drenched in reverb, which creates the intended effect of him singing out into a big empty field or a big empty music hall, or in the case of the song Haunted House, a big empty house. And the acoustic moments are outstanding too. Another one of my favorite songs is To Be Without You, which is another one of these songs which is sonically very gentle, but lyrically very weighty and dark. It's a depressing song, but he brings a bit of a country twang back here too, which I really dig. And it was cool to see the harmonica make an appearance on a couple songs too, like Doomsday and the title track. There's also Outbound Train, which I have to praise, like the rest of the album, for just its refreshing humanness. Like the first verse of this song is so clearly just a guy sitting there just with a guitar, just strumming away. And even as more instruments jump into the mix, it's all still just feels so organic. Maybe I'm just still cranky from reviewing that Starset record, which was like the opposite. It was like everything was so overproduced. I just really enjoy how live these instruments all sound. But there are songs, particularly on the back half of the record, that just don't add much, like the song Broken Anyway, or the song Tightrope, which despite the saxophone solo in it that I really enjoy, the refrain of just like, I want you to make me smile, I want you to drive me wild, it just kind of rubs me the wrong way. And I do get kind of tired of the sort of half slur with which he delivers some of these vocals. Like it becomes especially grating on the song Haunted House or on We Disappear. Just when I go back and listen to a Whiskeytown record like Stranger's Almanac, personally I just prefer the way he sings there more to this kind of slur thing. Like I just feel like on that record he was a lot more emotive and expressive and just let it out more. But to be fair, that whole mumbly slur thing is something that kind of bothers me with some of Bruce Springsteen stuff too. But in general, Prisoner is just a pleasant, easily enjoyable listen, and there's something to be said for that sometimes. And just because it's relatively unassuming and minimally challenging does not mean that it's fluffy or empty or lacks substance, because this is the quintessential breakup album full of sadness and regret and longing and a bit of bitterness and confusion too. And like I mentioned earlier, I enjoy the humanness of it. The emotions are pretty raw, the performances are immediate and clearly live, and it just sounds like a guy in a room airing out his feelings. So not only did Ryan Adams come through for me again, but I think Prisoner is going to stand out a bit in his recent catalog because it has this very particular melancholy to it. Prisoner gets a 7 out of 10 from me. As always, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, or shoot me a message so we can continue to talk music, and I'll see you guys soon.